Well, blessed good morning and happy Wednesday. It is a joy always to be able to share with you these mornings, to greet you and to spend a few moments with you in reflection, meditation, especially during this season of Lent. And I'm trusting that you're having a good Lent. And by good Lent, I mean that you are, as best as you're able, sticking to your plan for this Lenten time to assist in your spiritual growth and your deepening of your journey with the Almighty. So this morning, as with other mornings, we come together and we come into that space where we are able to be still and to come into our hearts, to ground ourselves, feeling the earth beneath us, the support of whatever we are sitting or lying on. And just recognize that we are always supported. And so we open our hearts in a way of responding to that sense that God is here and God is desirous of filling our hearts with love. And so we come with gratitude and with peace, with a knowing that we belong. We are not orphaned. We belong, we are connected. God is with us. God is here in this moment. God is here directing us and leading us forward. So we take a few breaths as we try to center ourselves and bring ourselves into that place of stillness, of peace. Being at peace within ourselves, being at peace with the world. Recognizing in this moment that I lack nothing. All I have and all I need is right here. So in this place of stillness, we explore scriptures to see what story there may be for us and what word coming out of that story. And this Gospel of John chapter 5 speaks about the sheep gate where there's a pool. It's called in Hebrew Bethsatha, and it has 5 porticos. And this is a place that persons lay waiting for a little bit of the disturbance of the pool. And many blind, lame, paralyzed persons are usually there waiting their turn, waiting hopefully to be healed. And John tells us of this man that was there for 38 years. And Jesus goes to him and asks, "Do you want to be made well?" And the man begins to say that he has no one to put him in the pool when the water is stirred up. And he complains that while he is making his way, someone else steps down ahead of him. So Jesus says to him to stand up, take your mat and walk. And so the man was made well, and he took up his mat and began to walk. Now it was the Sabbath day. So the Jews said to the man who had been cured, "It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful to carry your mat." But he told them that the man who made him well said to him, "Take up your mat and walk." They wondered, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Take up your mat and walk'?" The man who had been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had disappeared in the crowd that was there. So later Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you have been made well. Do not sin anymore, so that nothing worse happens to you." And so the man went away and said to the Jews that it was Jesus who made him well. And so the Jews started persecuting Jesus because he was doing such things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, "My Father is still working, and I also am working." It was because of this reason that the Jews were seeking to kill him, because he was not only breaking the Sabbath, but he was also calling God his Father. Thereby, in their estimation, he was making himself equal to God. I don't know if you have the same response as I do to episodes in Jesus' life like this one, where there's some form of healing, there's some restoration of a person's well-being, and the authorities can only focus on the rules. And because of the rules, they persecute. And then in this particular case, there is that sense of being closed-minded, not willing to accept the ongoing revelation of God. You know, it is really amazing how in one breath we would say to each other that God is so vast that we can study God for our entire lifetime and not know very much about God. Yet at the same time, we behave as though the things that we have discerned, now these are the final words. And so we treat them as though they are written in stone, that they're changeless. And to give credence to them, we would say, well, this is what God said. We never say, this is what persons who had a revelation understood. We, in some way, take the human element out of it. And we remove the frailty of the human vessel. And the fact that, using a modern day term, God has to dumb down so much in order to be able to get us to begin to understand. One only has to look at the book of the Revelation with a powerful imagery. Because the beautiful thing about imagery is that imagery is not words. And yes, the author had to write something, but he was trying to describe what he saw. So in trying to describe what he saw, he would have reduced what he saw to words. But what he saw was imagery. And his vision was far richer than the words that we have. It's important for us to make allowances for the human frailty and to realize that there is a spirit of the law. In other words, there is that sense of what is the law seeking to do. Because even in our day, laws are constantly being reformed. And the reason they're being reformed is because you're trying to make sure that the spirit of the law is kept. You're trying to ensure that you don't so lock into the letter that an individual quite craftily can get around in some way through some loophole. So they're constantly reforming. As life expands and evolves, they're having to reform the law in order to keep the spirit of the law alive. And that's not an easy task, because the law is really there for protection, to help as a last-ditch effort to protect, in a sense, the innocent. And so the law of the Sabbath, for example, is a law that has its reflection on the fact that they had no rest time in Egypt. And that's the context in which we're told it was given. Because of that, there was this gift of a rest day that would help them to remind each other of the fact that, there was a time when we couldn't afford this. But by the grace of God, we've got it now. We can have at least a day to relax and to reflect. And we give God thanks for that. And so that possessing of that day leads the individual to God. In fact, that's what everything on our earth is intended to do. Lead us to God. The laws, the ideas, none of that is an end in itself. They're all intended to point back to God. So Jesus says that the Father is working and He is still working. Jesus points to the Father. But they're a little bit annoyed that he points to the Father. Because they've extricated the law itself and they've made it separate and distinct from anything else. They're just focusing on that. They're not seeing the deeper meaning, the deeper significance. Here's a healed man. But in some regards too, it also gives us an idea of how persons perceive those who are broken. How we look at the ones that are broken. The fact that we don't see them as human beings. In some way we tend to see them as objects, as things. So to those of the day, of Jesus' day, this man was just another one of those broken people. The fact that he's made whole is not a moment of rejoicing, because he is carrying his mat. And that's the greatest sin. We look past the healing and worry about the mat. He probably would only have been noticed because he was carrying the mat. If you weren't carrying a mat, he would probably have passed by without even being noticed. No one would have remembered that he was there for 38 years. How we dismiss human beings in the pretext of keeping God's law. How we ignore each other. But Scripture reminds us, how can we say we love God and hate our brother? Yet we do that so oftentimes. We say we love God, and at the same time we despise our brother. So this morning, as we reflect on this passage, we do so being mindful of the importance of seeing the person first, of acknowledging the person, and then everything else comes after, because it is for the person that God has given us these guidelines and these commandments. It is for the person. They're not an end in themselves, but they're in the service of each other, of us. So let's look out for that person that we will pass this morning, this day. That person broken, in need of healing. Let's look past all the various things that says we can't, and let's just see the person and know that there go I, but for the grace of God, as St. Augustine once said, looking through a window and seeing a broken man. Let's look for the person in this world.